Well, we have an excellent guest speaker here today, another, I'd say legend now in the industry in terms of the economic forecast and what's going on more on a nationwide basis. And so with us today, we have Dr. Jessica Lautz. Hello, how are you? I hope you can see us here. We are glad to have you here today. So Dr. Jessica Lautz is Deputy Chief Economist and Vice President of Research at the National Association of Realtors. The core of her research focuses on analyzing trends for both NAR members, groups, and data analysis, and she presents new and innovative ways to showcase results. She effectively utilizes research data to educate and impact policymakers on the state of the housing market and discusses research findings in major media outlets and international presentations. If you haven't followed her on social media, you've got to do it because it seems like every other day she's in the national media with really providing insight to and clarity to the market as a whole out there across America. So thanks for all you're doing there. Dr. Lautz was named one of Housing Wire's Women of Influence, a list representing 100 of the most influential women in leadership in the housing industry. In 2022 and 23, Dr. Lautz was named a RIS Media Newsmaker in the Influencer and Consider categories. Also volunteers at Nottingham Trent University as a ministry fellow mentor, mentoring real estate graduate students there. Jessica received her doctorate in real estate from Nottingham Trent University in the United Kingdom. She also holds a master's in public policy from American University and undergraduate degrees in political science and law and justice from Central Washington University. Welcome, Dr. Lautz. Appreciate you being here. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm excited to be here with you today, and I think you all can hear me. We did a little test. Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up. Perfect. So I'm going to zoom through a bunch of data that I have here, and I really appreciate you all having me join virtually. I have been in, I think, 4 cities this week and leave again tomorrow morning. So I am happy to join anywhere I can and just share some information that we have with as many audiences as possible. This is a really difficult time in the real estate market. There's really no sugarcoating that. And I think we're aware of the 2 main problems that we're seeing right now, but it's interest rates and it's inventory. And I'll show you some data here quickly that does show really what home buyers are encountering right now. What I would really suggest for everyone in the room is and you're here, you're educating yourselves, you clearly are ahead of the curve, but to make sure that you are getting the best data that you possibly can in real time, because things are changing quickly. And so it's important to know what's really going on. And so taking a look at the hard data is so incredibly important. As we look at interest rates today, you know, one of the miscommunications that I may be hearing a little bit about is just how interest rates today, while they are going up, you know, back in the 1980s, we were seeing double-digit interest rates, and so they're still lower than then. Well, I think we have to stop with that messaging here pretty quickly. And the reason why is because the historical average dating back to 1971 is 7.74%. It's very possible this Thursday, I used Freddie Mac's data on a weekly basis to take an analysis of this. It's very possible we do hit there this week. And so as we see interest rates are going up closer to that red line, I think we just have to be clear with what our messaging is. This is having a very detrimental effect to potential home buyers who have not been homeowners before, so they don't have housing equity to save for the next property. It also is having a locked-in effect of potential sellers. If a potential home purchaser purchased a home when rates were at the lowest point of 2.65%, and we think back at that time period, right in the dark days of the pandemic, they would essentially, if they purchased a $400,000 home, the median price of a home today, they would be looking at a monthly payment of nearly $1,000 extra per month. It's very possible there's homeowners who are currently residing in their home with a mortgage that they feel comfortable making that payment on. They would not be able to make a payment if they even purchased their same home today. So we do need to be clear in the messaging that we're putting out there. The other big impact of these rise in interest rates, but also coupled with the continual rise in home prices, is that we are seeing that there are fewer people who are able to afford what we are looking at as a housing market today. And one of these impacts is just looking at housing affordability. We have to take both of those into an equation and then also look at what the typical income is of the US population. As we look at that, what we can see is the historical average has been just over 20% of what percentage someone we would be paying for income. And today it's at 29%. So looking at the all-encompassing housing affordability, it is important to take that all into account. And then lastly, going to the next really hard factor in the housing market today is just purely looking at inventory. And as we look at this, coming out of the Great Recession, we had about 4 million units in the marketplace, and today we have 1. We started ringing the alarm bells right around before the pandemic, saying housing affordability, inventory, it is a very big problem for potential home buyers today. And the reason why we were seeing that is we were seeing such tremendous gains in home prices because of the lack of inventory. And at that time period, we had 2 million units in the marketplace. And today we have, give or take, 1 million on a monthly basis. It's very possible as we head into the winter and later fall months, that we actually could have even less inventory than we do today. And the reason why is traditionally in winter months, we have less units available in the marketplace because fewer homes who have children under the age of 18 are likely to be able and willing to make a move during the middle of the school year. What I would say, that's a lot of bad news. I want to give you the good side here, is that for every home that's listed right now, we're typically seeing 3 offers is the norm. This is a good thing because this shows me that there's a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of potential consumers out there for that limited housing inventory, and there's a lot of high-income buyers who are able to actually purchase a home today with the rise in interest rates and rise in home prices. The other thing that I know is going on, and I'll show you this data in a second, is all cash buyers are a tremendous share. What I do want to show you, though, is that, yes, we have less demand than what we did in the heat of the pandemic market, but we are coming into a more normalized market. The number of offers that we're seeing here, we're still seeing 1/3 of homes moving for more than the asking price, indicating that there's bidding wars that are going on. And we're seeing the typical home is selling within 20 days. The vast majority of homes selling under a month. That still talks to a seller's market that we are seeing now, even with less home sales activity. When we look at a share of the marketplace that was driving a lot of the activity during this pandemic-induced boom was non-primary residence buyers. So investors, vacation home buyers, people saying, I want a second property during this time period. What we see now is it's at 16% of the market. So we're right in line with the norm. In fact, the historical norm is 15%. So we're right there. That 22% mark, that was a high water mark when we had the lowest inventory we've ever recorded. And so there's a lot of investors who came in and said, I could flip that property if there's the lowest inventory out there. What we are also seeing in this marketplace is that we know that there's a tremendous amount of all cash buyers. It's actually 26% of the market, and it's been more than 1/4 of the market actually since last year about this time. It's a really interesting facet. I think this speaks to just who's active in the real estate market. We actually see that half of older boomers are able to pay all cash for their home purchase, and that boomers overall, baby boomers, are the biggest section of home buyers today. So these home buyers are active in the real estate market. They have housing equity that they've earned over their time period of living in their family home, and they're able to make this housing trade and do so quite comfortably. They don't care about interest rates. And this is a huge section of the market, and it's quite important because as we see that there are these multiple offer situations, as we see the competition in the marketplace, all cash buyers are going to continue to win. So I would expect that this share is going to be pretty sticky for the time being, as we see baby boomers continuing to making trades in the real estate market today. I think this is an important section to watch. I keep underlining it because I just think it's a really fascinating trend that we're seeing here, and the competition that we're seeing among potentially first-time home buyers in the market, trying to win out on a housing bid, and then continuing to see this section of the market win out. I think it's here to stay. One of the things that I think is important to note too in the real estate market is that a recent survey that we did actually showed that there's a lot of potential home buyers who are renters, or they're doubling up with friends and family right now, and they're not purchasing, and they're expecting that home prices are going to drop. And if I look at Instagram, if I look at TikTok, what I continue to see are videos that say that home prices are going to drop and we're going to see the bottom drop out, or there's going to be a lot of distressed sales, there's a bubble. I just don't see it. Even with the rise in rates, we continue to see growth in home prices. And because of the lack of inventory, that's what's really pushing up those home prices. As we look at the real estate market, just 1% of recent sellers had a distressed sale in the marketplace. And if we look back into the really depressing time of the Great Recession, what we can actually see is that it was 49% of realtors were working with a distressed seller at that time period. That was in spring of 2009. So a very different time period than we are seeing right now. And there's three main reasons why this real estate market is so completely different than what we have seen before. Tight lending standards are really a big driver today. It is increasingly difficult to obtain a loan. Banks don't want to loan that money out. And they're making sure that a buyer has a higher credit score, has money in reserves, can prove their income. I am seeing articles in the last week that are saying that ARMs are back. They're back. Yes, absolutely. It is a way to have a lower interest rate than encountering that rate close to 8%. That being said, it's very possible that that's a good loan product for a potential buyer if they don't plan on staying in that home for eternity. It's also a very good loan product if home buyers are expecting that the rate will drop, which is our expectation and our forecast moving into 2024, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. That's just not in our forecast currently. The low inventory that we're encountering today, we have been underbuilding for a decade. It is very difficult to purchase a home today, and to find a property, it is the number one most difficult step. And we know that that low inventory has been really plaguing the environment. And we've seen over the course of the last year that housing starts will go up and then they'll retreat again, and permits will go up and then they'll retreat again. What we are seeing is that builders in the last month, actually housing permits have gone up, even though housing starts have gone down. What does that mean? Well, it means that when they go to that county office, if that's a delay of a couple of months between the permitting start and when the shovel is in the ground and that house is being built, perhaps that's a time period when builders are going to expect that rates will go down and we could see more inventory coming into the market. That's a silver lining I'm seeing. The other silver lining that I am seeing when we look at this data is that the length of time to build a home went up during the pandemic. Having labor, having supplies, everything to build a home was all delayed. And so that time period went up, and we are seeing that that's shortening again, and that's some encouragement there as well. On the demographics, I'm going to go in depth on this, but I do want to say that young adults are coming into the marketplace at the same time that boomers are aging in place and want to stay put in their home. That's putting a lot of pressure on the market. One of the things I want to talk about, though, when we look at housing starts, is really looking at the share of brand new homes that are being built that's actually for rent. And this is a section of the market that we're seeing here today. And it's higher than what we have seen in the past. Traditionally, when we think about a single family home that's being built in the market, we often think about a home that someone's going to move in and they're going to actually purchase that property. What we are seeing is that even though we have seen housing starts go up in fits and starts this year, we actually are seeing a section of this is actually built for rent. I think why we're seeing this is that first-time home buyers are the oldest we've ever seen them. They have families, they need a bigger place to live, and an apartment is not going to work for them anymore. So to show you the data here, just what I'm talking about, what we have seen dating back to 1974 from census data is actually that the highest share in the last year, it's 8% of the real estate market of all single family homes is actually built for rent. I think this is important because as we think about housing starts going up, we can't automatically think that this is going to be a home that someone can move into and purchase. This is somewhere that someone can move into, but they're going to be renting that temporarily. When we look at where this is happening regionally, just to show you this data, the Midwest, we actually have 12% of all built for rent product is actually it's 12% of all single family homes are actually built for rent product. So when we look at this, it is important to note that there are some regional differences, the Midwest being the most popular, but it is 8% in the South as well. So looking at just the differences here on the graph, the West has the smallest share at 7% of all single family homes are built for rent product. All right, so I want to shift gears here a little bit. I think it's really important to note just the migration patterns that are happening around the country today. They are longer. This is a heat map. This shows USPS change of address data. Big caveat here. When we look at this data, we are looking at both renters and movers who are going to purchase that home. Why? Because it's change of address data. So if you're moving and you want to get your mail, you're going to have to change your address. As we look at this data, the other big caveat that I'm going to give you here is it's only through 2022. This is not showing the last year. And I think, and I suspect that migration patterns may have actually changed even more, because what we are seeing is that CEOs largely are saying, come back to the office. And as you say, come back to the office, you can't necessarily move to a more affordable location in the country. You may have to be wedded to the city center where your office is. So as we look at this, what I want to show you is that Kansas overall is actually pretty flat. So when I'm showing this laundry list here, and I don't know how good the view is in the room, but I'll make sure that these charts can be sent to you as well, is that on the right-hand side here, Kansas doesn't show up. And what that means is that your population is essentially flat overall in comparison to where we are seeing in some areas of the country. So migration flow into Florida, Texas, Carolinas, Tennessee is top around the country. All right. What is important to note, though, is that we are seeing that people are moving very long distances. And as we see this, what we can note here is that traditionally people moved from 1989 to 2021 just 10 to 15 miles. And in the last year, they've actually moved a median of 50 miles. When we see this, I think it's really important to note that the population who is moving the longer distances are more likely to be baby boomers who are active in the housing market today. We're actually seeing a quarter of all home buyers are moving 470 miles or more. So these long distances moved really speak to a lot of really big changes that are happening. It's not only workers who are moving out of city centers, which I was previously talking about, but it's also looking at retirees who are saying, I need a fresh start. I want to be close to friends and family. I want a bigger place. All of these are big factors that are out there right now for all home buyers. The other factor that I think is pretty interesting and seems to be a sticky trend is just the share of buyers who are actually purchasing a home sight unseen. It's 9% of recent home buyers in the last month. They did not physically see that home or step into that home before they went to purchase it. They're doing so with a realtor. That realtor is maybe FaceTiming or Zooming the home, but they are not physically seeing it. I do think it completely changes the role that the agent has. It puts a lot more pressure on that agent to really convey what that home is. The honesty and the trust that's in that transaction, I think, really is quite high between the buyer of that home and also that agent to really have open communication about what they're seeing. All right, I want to give you a few slides here on generational trends that we're seeing. This is really important as we look at the housing market and what we expect for the future. So when we look at this, what we can see on this graph is looking at census data and just the US population overall. The green is looking at babies born in the last year. And in the gray here, we can see not that many people make it past, unfortunately, like 95 years old. So the bars get shorter here, just looking at the US population. Big takeaways on this chart. When we look at the blue, we can see really quickly here that the blue is the biggest population in the country today, and that's the millennial population. As we look at this too, I want to have a couple takeaways as we look at this generation. One is the median age of 36 years old. That's the first red bar. And as we look at them, that is the oldest we have ever seen a first-time home buyer, dating back to 1981 when our data collection on this started. So that's important in itself. What's also important is that peak there that we see that's between the ages of about 26 and 33. That's traditionally where we see a first-time home buyer enter into the real estate market. So seeing that we have a substantial portion of the population who wants to be aging into where their first home is traditionally purchased is putting a lot of pressure on the housing market today with that lack of inventory. The other important takeaways here, if we move over to the yellow, we can see that the baby boomers second largest generation, really dominant in the real estate market today. Other big takeaways in the next couple of years, every single boomer is going to be over the age of 60. That's important because they're going to be hitting retirement, or at least dreaming of retirement in the near future, and thinking about where they want to live with that retirement as well. Other big takeaways, the second red line here is 59 years old. This is the median age of a repeat buyer today. If we look back to 1981, the median age of a repeat buyer is 36 years old.
Wow.
I'm hearing reaction in the room. So I think we're all taking this in. And as we take this in, knowing that that really does change what people need out of their home, what their expectations, their length of living there. Also, if we go back to that 36-year-old first-time home buyer today, and I think about them individually, they are leaving behind a lot of housing equity. If they would have traditionally purchased their first home at 28, now they're doing so at 36, that's a housing trade off the table, but that's also 8 years of lost housing equity. We also know that the pressures that we're feeling in the real estate market today is because of this change and the shift in ages. Because as I think about a 36-year-old buyer, I know from the data that we're collecting that they want to purchase in a suburban area, an outer suburb, a small town. This is where they're migrating to, as opposed to a city center. Why? Well, they're older, they may have kids, and they have a family at this point, as opposed to being a single 28-year-old buyer. This is a little bit of a difference there. So as we think about the pressures in the housing market, we have traditionally always seen retirees move to outer areas. Now there is some migration flow actually into city centers because they have money and they want to be there with the amenities that they have. But we can see that this competition in the marketplace is probably also because of the shift that we have not seen traditionally. All right. So as we look at the generations of home buyers, really important here, I'm keeping the colors the same on this chart. The blue is the median age of millennials, or the share of millennials in the marketplace today. And what we can see over the last 8 years, they were the biggest, most dominant generation in the housing market. In the last year, they have dropped off considerably. So they are now 28% of the market. And on the flip side, baby boomers have overtaken them at 39% of the marketplace. So really a very big shift here. Gen Xers, we didn't talk about them at all, but they are the purple. They are steady in the real estate market, and just keeping steady here at that 24% and not necessarily competing in that warfare. What also is important as we look at this chart too are Gen Zers. They're the youngest generation of home buyers today. So really thinking about late teens, very early 20s. They are entering in the real estate market, but they are doing so largely with mom and dad's help, and really having that move perhaps directly from mom and dad's home into homeownership as well. All right. I want to give you a few more demographic changes here too. One is that we have an overall drop in marriage rates in this country. If we look back at the 1960s, 70% of American adults were married. Today is just half. And when we look at this, what we can see is this is truly reflected among first-time home buyers, but honestly, it's reflected among all generations of buyers, but it's just most pronounced among first-time home buyers. So as we see this, we can see a really big shift in this data. We have a drop in married couples who are purchasing homes. We see a tremendous rise in unmarried couples purchasing homes, but also a rise in singles purchasing homes, particularly single women. As we look at this, a couple takeaways that I would have here are that when we think about single women and single men purchasing homes, they are doing so on less household income because it's a single income, and especially single women, even on a lower household income, but they're still actively competing in the real estate market. They are saving for a longer period of time, single women, and they're paying down debt, they're moving in with parents, and so on to be able to save for this home. We also are seeing roommates come into the marketplace in a way that we have not traditionally seen. I know it's only 5%, but I think it's notable. And the reason why is because they're going to need a different type of space. Single buyers and roommates are going to need a very different home. Roommates perhaps thinking about 2 large primary bedrooms, suites, single buyers needing a smaller square footage than what we would see for married couples with families or unmarried couples with families. Another one is that we are seeing overall a drop in home buyers who have children in the household. Why? Well, we're seeing a rising share of repeat buyers, and those repeat buyers are close to retirement age. So perhaps those kids are out of the household by now. We also know that people are having children later, and there's more child-free households in the US as well. So birth rates are down overall. And as we see this, back in 1985, 58% of home buyers had a child under the age of 18, and today it's 31%. Why does that matter? Well, it's going to change the location of where that home needs to be. So perhaps those perfect school districts, it's not a top priority. The size of the home, if you need to accommodate children or not, size of the yard, and so on, all of those amenities could be different. The other thing that we are seeing here is that overall in the US, 40% of US households have a kid under the age of 18 in that household, which is an overall drop. On the flip side, this is a much later note, but I'm going to give you the data anyway. 70% have a pet, and we are seeing this be a driver in household choice. So when we look at where people are purchasing their home, we actually see that 19% of home buyers are factoring in their pet into where that home is going to be. I know this is lighter, but this is a factor out there. And as we look at single women and unmarried couples, it's actually closer to a third of them are factoring in their pet into their neighborhood choice. So thinking about where the dog parks are, or walkable communities, or the vet is, all of those types of things being important. I want to give you a few slides on baby boomers. They're absolutely upending what it means to be home buyers today. And a lot of the expectations that we have for senior retiree buyers are not necessarily matching reality. They're really truly myths out there. One of them is downsizing. We just don't see it necessarily as a trend. This is not something that's as popular today as it has been in the past. Some of it could be availability of homes. Homes are larger. That's where they can purchase. That's where they are purchasing. Some of it is likely because they want their friends and family to be able to come over. And many of them are following the grandbaby. It's the number one reason to sell a home and move today is to be close to friends and family. So as we see this, just the idea of having a bigger home is quite important. They're buying a forever home. And I talked about roommates for younger buyers. It's happening for seniors too. So thinking about the Grace and Frankie phenomenon or Golden Girls, whichever your favorite is, we are definitely seeing roommates be a factor out there. For also looking at senior buyers, I think it's really important to note that they have money and they want to use that money smartly in their home. So smart home features and green features, we traditionally think of those as a young person's game, but we are seeing them embraced by senior buyers as well. So this definitely is a shift, and I think something that could be quite surprising as we look at these senior buyers. But as we think of them wanting to age in place, though they're not aging, what we see is that having a device turn on the lights or change the temperature could really make it much easier to think about aging in place and perhaps an even safer environment than what we have for aging housing stock today. The other factor that we are seeing here when we think about seniors is multi-generational living. This buying type has gone up. It continues to be quite high in the data. It's at 14% of all buyers are purchasing a multi-generational home. The number one reason to purchase a multi-generational home is because of an elderly relative moving in. So thinking about perhaps everyone financially contributing to household expenses in that scenario, or perhaps thinking about caregiving. So elder care being taken care of, child care being taken care of, everyone contributing into that household as well. And while this is quite high, it seems to be another trend that doesn't seem to be going away. I think this will continue to grow here, especially as we think about post-pandemic, the embracing of nursing homes or assisted living. I just don't think that Americans are all about that. And we are really thinking about new ways to support family members moving forward. I want to talk about the agent role. It's incredibly important. Agents are being embraced. People want an agent by their side. And in fact, I will tell you this data is higher moving forward. Our data is embargoed for the new release, but we are continuing to see that buyers want an agent. They want someone to help them find that right home, to walk them through that transaction, to help them negotiate, every aspect of that transaction. It is different today, and it is harder today than it has been in the past to just find that perfect home. And that's where the agent comes in. And we also know on the selling side, this data is also up, but we are seeing that sellers want an agent to help them price that home competitively, sell it within a specific time frame, be able to find that qualified buyer. That is my alarm because I am over time, and really walk them through every aspect of that transaction. And that is my very last slide. So thank you so much for having me join you via Zoom today. I very much appreciate it.